Hey folks, it's Stephan here, with another Pathfinder adventure card game Wrath of the Righteous video. This week we'll be playing the Wardstone Legacy. Cultists have claimed the heart of Old Canabrus. Grey Garrison has fallen to the Cultists of Discari fanatics who battle against their counterparts in the Cult of Baphomet. Should the Wardstone fall to the Oracle Jeslyn, the rift will open wide. If that were to happen, the entire world would be wounded. The villain is Jeslyn. Henchmen are Orthribo, and Cultists of Baphomet. During this scenario, when you play a blessing that has the Iomedae trait, you may put it on top of another character's deck instead of discarding it. When you play any other blessing and it does not have the corrupted trait, banish it and replace it with a random blessing that has the corrupted trait from the box. So that's going to be interesting to keep track of. Locations: the Grey Garrison. When you move, draw a random monster from the box and shuffle it into this location deck. The Temple of Iomedae. You may recharge any blessing to add 2 dice to a non-combat charisma check. The Wardstone Chamber. While the Grey Garrison is open, the difficulty of checks against Banes is increased by 2. The Forsaken Cloister. When you move or are moved here, bury a card. Any character at another location may discard a card to evade an encounter and then move here. And the Great Hall. When you encounter a henchman or villain, before you act, summon and encounter this adventure's servitor demon. So it sounds like we probably want to close the Grey Garrison first, and we're going to send Imrijka over there to work on that. We'll send Seelah to the Temple of Iomedae, and Enora will go to the Forgotten Cloister. Now we have opening hands already, so we will get started with Enora at the Forsaken Cloister. Potion of Beast Skin. Intelligence Craft 4. Well, that's a D12 plus 2 for her. And we get an 8, so we do acquire the Potion of Beast Skin. Display this card and choose a character at your location. While displayed, reduce combat damage dealt to that character by 2. At the end of the turn, banish this card. Now she can explore again with a Blessing of Ascension, but we've got to reread this Wardstone Legacy scenario. When you play a blessing that has the Iomedae trait, you may put it on top of another character's deck instead of discarding it. When you play any other blessing and it does not have the corrupted trait, banish it and replace it with a random blessing that has the corrupted trait from the box. Well, actually, I do have a corrupted trait blessing of Abraxas, which would be 2 dice to any arcane or divine check, or I can use it to explore. I'd rather use the Blessing of Ascension to explore, though. I will use this blessing. Okay, so it gets banished, and then I'm going to replace it with a blessing from the box that has the corrupted trait. So we'll just draw until we find something with a corrupted trait. And that would be the Blessing of Discari has the corrupted trait. Discard this card to add 1 die to your check. Discard this card to explore your location. If the top card of the Blessings discard pile has the corrupted trait, discard this card to add 2 dice plus the Scenario's Adventure deck number to your check. Okay, so we're still able to explore with it, which is what I was trying to achieve. And so we will explore. And we find a Vulture, Wisdom Survival 5. Well, we have a D6 for Wisdom. And we get a 5, so we do acquire the Vulture, and we're going to be able to use him immediately to explore again, so we will do that. And we find a spell, Dazzle, Intelligence Arcane 4. For us, we can use our Knowledge skill for that spell, which would be a D12 plus 4, so we cannot fail that. And we do acquire Dazzle, which doesn't help too much. Well, we're going to have to drop something anyway, so we might as well use the Blessing of Abraxas to explore again. Keep clearing this out, and look at that, we found the henchman Orthribo. Check to defeat combat 10 or craft 8. All damage dealt to Orthribo is poison damage. Before you act, each character at your location is dealt 1 poison damage. Just take that on the Potion of Beast Skin. Now, we'll take it on Dazzle, I suppose. Combat 10 or craft 8. We will use Frigid Blast. For your combat check, discard this card to use your Arcane or Divine skill plus 2d4. So that would be a d12 plus 2d4 plus 2. And Imrijka is going to spend a blessing, although that means that now we're going to have to look for a corrupted trait blessing. Serenray doesn't have corruption. There's Abraxas. So this will get used in place of the Ascension. And actually this works out very well for us because this is 2 dice to any arcane or divine check. So now we'll be rolling 3d12 and 2d4 plus 2. And still we managed to get a 13, so 15 total, but that is enough to defeat Orthribo. And if defeated, you may immediately attempt to close the location where this henchman came from. First off, though, let's recharge a spell from here. I think there's only one spell. That will get recharged because we played a spell, and then we're going to see if we can recharge this spell, which is a d12 plus 2 to get a 6. And we get an 11, so we do recharge that. And now we'll check what the closing cost is. When closing, each character at this location must summon and defeat this adventurous servitor demon. Okay. Orthrobo goes away, and we take a look at the servitor demon, which is the sloth demon. Combat 9. He is immune to electricity and poison. Before you act, each character at your location must succeed at a Constitution or Fortitude 6 or discard 1 card. We only have a D4 for Constitution, so we're going to end up discarding a card. I'm going to discard Create Pit, and we are going to use Fiery Glare in order to fight him. So that's going to be a D12 plus 2D4 plus 2 to get a 9. Imrijka is going to give us another blessing, so this means we again have to find something with the corrupted trait. This one does. This is Shax. Blessing of Shax. Discard this card to add 1 die to any check. If after you play this card, if the top card of the Blessings discard pile has the corrupted trait, discard a card. It does not, because it's a Blessing of Baphomet. So we're going to get 1 more die, so it's going to be 2d12 and 2d4 plus 2. And that is a total of 16, which is enough to defeat the Sloth Demon. And that closes the Forsaken Cloister. There's no effect when closed. We are going to get Create Pit back into our hand because we cast a spell. And we will roll a d12 plus 2 to see if we can get a 10 to recharge Fiery Glare. And we get a 1, so we do not. Enora is going to reset her hand. And play will go to Imrijka. Imrijka's at the Great Garrison and encounters a Blessing of Baphomet. Charisma 4 or Divine 5. While her Divine is a d8 plus 1, so we'll go for the Divine. We get a 6, a total of 7, so we do acquire the Blessing of Baphomet, which is good. We can use that immediately to explore again. And this one doesn't trigger this because it is a Blessing of Baphomet. Or when you play a Blessing of Baphomet, you may put it on top of another character's deck instead of discarding it. Okay, well, we'll put it on top of Seelah's deck, because I'm sure she wouldn't mind having that. Magical Scale Mail. Constitution Fortitude 5. We have just a d6 for that. And we get a 2, so we do not acquire. That is all she can do, so she will reset up to 5 cards and pass play to Seelah. Seelah here is at the Temple of Baphomet. You may recharge any blessing to add 2 dice to a non-combat charisma check. And she encounters the Cultists of Baphomet, so it's the henchman for this location. Difficulty of checks to defeat Cultists of Baphomet is increased by the scenario's adventure deck number, so she's an 11. Before you act, if this is your first exploration, she deals 1 damage to you. It is our first exploration. We're going to take that damage on the long spear. And we have a long sword. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your strength or melee plus 1d8. So that is going to be a total of 2d8 plus 3 right now to get an 11. 2d8 plus 3. So starting at a 5 to get an 11. She's going to spend a blessing, but that means we're going to have to go and find another corrupted blessing. There are, of course, many Blessings of Ascension, so it's not too surprising to have that. Okay, we ended up with Blessing of Jaskari. Add 1 die to your check. If the top card of the Blessings discard pile has the corrupted trait, discard this card to add 2 dice, plus the scenario's adventure deck number to your check. Well, it does, because it's a Blessing of Abraxas. So now we're going to be adding 2 dice and a 1. So we'll be rolling 4d8 plus 4. And that is 22, so that is a defeat of the Cultists of Baphomet. We may immediately attempt to close the location. Succeed at a charisma check with a difficulty of 5 plus twice the scenario's adventure deck number, so that would be a 7. And our charisma is a d10 plus 1, which is far from being guaranteed. d10 plus 1. We're going to have Imrijka give us a blessing, so same drill here. We're going to find one with a corrupted trait. And another Blessing of Jaskari. And again, we've got the effect of, if the top card of the Blessings discard pile has a corrupted trait, discard this card to add 2 dice plus the scenario's adventure deck number to your check. So now she'll be rolling 3d10 plus 2 to get a 7. We got a couple low rolls in there, but with the 2, we get a 16 total, so that is enough to close this location. On closing, draw a random weapon or item that has the magic trait on it from the box. Well, Seelah only has a single item, so she will go for a weapon. And it's not just a regular weapon, it has to have the magic trait on it. So let's see what we end up finding. There aren't too many, I don't think. Well, okay, the first one we draw has the magic. Flaming Heavy Pick +1. For a combat check, reveal this card to use your strength or melee skill plus 1d6 plus 1. You may additionally discard this card to add another 1d6 and the fire trait. If any d6 rolled on this check is a 6, count it as a 7. Might be an improvement over the long spear, for example. We'll have to see. But this location is now closed. She will reset her hand up to 4 cards, and play goes back to Enora, who now needs to move. And she will move to the Great Hall. She explores and finds Holy Water Grenade, Wisdom Divine 6. She has a d6 for Wisdom. And gets a 4, so she does not acquire that. She could explore again with Quadness Orlin. Discard this card to explore your location. During this exploration, add 1d6 to your non-combat arcane or knowledge checks. So let's see what comes of that. And it is the Demonic Fly. Combat 13. The Demonic Fly is immune to acid, electricity, and poison. If defeated, each character at your location is dealt 1 acid damage. If undefeated, bury a random card from your discard pile and shuffle this into a random other open location. Yes, well, he's not very pleasant, is he? Acid, electricity, and poison. We have Force Missile, which is force damage, and we have Fiery Glare. We'll use Force Missile. So that, as a base, is a d12 plus 2d4 plus 2, and then we've used Quadness, so... Oh, non-combat. Okay, so this one is a combat, so he doesn't actually help us. We're going to definitely want a Blessing here, and Seelah has a Blessing of Iomade, which she can then, because of the Scenarios effect, put on top of someone else's deck. And Enora's gone through quite a few cards, so it's going to go on top of Enora's deck. So we'll be rolling 2d12 and 2d4 plus 2 to get a 13. And we've already got 11 there. Okay, 17 plus 2 is 19, so we defeat the Demonic Fly. And unfortunately, he's going to deal 1 acid damage to us, but we'll just take that on the Potion of Beast Skin. Now, we can recharge Fiery Glare, I believe is the only spell in our hand, in our discard, sorry. So that will get recharged for casting a spell. And now we will roll a d12 plus 2 to get a 6 to see if we can recharge Force Missile. And we get a 9, so we do recharge that. And this guy goes away. We are just going to reset our hand. And pass play to Imrijka, who is at the Grey Garrison. She explores and finds a Bunyip. Combat 9. Before you act, succeed at a Wisdom 9 check, or the difficulty of your checks is increased by 1 for the rest of your turn. Well, that would be tough. We have a d8 for Wisdom. And there is 1 blessing on the table, the Blessing of Iomade. Well, he would only go up to a 10. It's not a huge deal, I don't think. We're not going to bother with it. Our checks will just go up by 1. We're going to use our hand crossbow, and we're going to recharge the composite bow to use the hand crossbow effect, which is now going to be rolling a d10, a d8, a d6, plus 2. And we get 12, so we do defeat the Bunyip, and she is just going to reset. She doesn't have a way to explore again anyway. Play goes to Seelah, who also needs to move. Now, we don't necessarily want to go to the Wardstone chamber yet because the Grey Garrison is still open, so she's going to move over with Imrijka and work on closing this. And we found a hand crossbow, dexterity range 7. Would have been better to have Imrijka encounter that, of course, because Seelah only has a d4, so she's not going to acquire that hand crossbow. Or, I guess that was a heavy crossbow. Doesn't have a way to explore again either, so she's just going to reset. Nobody's really in need of healing, so play goes over to Enora. Still exploring at the Great Hall. Finds a Sai. Strength melee 9, which is quite a bit above her d6. So that's just going to go back. She could use the Blessing of Iomade to explore again. And I think she will. She'll send it over to Seelah. Just keep bouncing this Blessing of Iomade back and forth. And it's the Cultists of Baphomet. Check to defeat combat 10. This was not our first exploration. It's our second exploration, so we don't have to take that 1 combat damage. But she is an 11. And we can use Life Drain. For your combat check, discard this card to use your Arcane or Divine skill plus 2d4. Shuffle one random card from your discard pile into your deck. First, actually, we might use Brilliance instead. Yes, let's do that. Display this card next to your character. While displayed, add 3 to your character's intelligence checks. So we're going to do that, and that would get us a spell back, but I don't think there are any. Now we're going to use Life Drain. So Arcane or Divine plus 2d4, shuffle one random card from your discard pile into your deck. And now we will roll to get an 11. There are no blessings on the table, so... Okay, a d12, and then we're going to add 3 to it, right? So a d12 and 2d4 plus 5. And that is a total of 21, so that defeats the Cultists of Baphomet quite handily. Oh, when you encounter a villain or henchman before you act, summon and encounter this adventure's servitor demon. I forgot about that effect. I mean, it's going to be kind of the same thing. Let's see. We would use Fiery Glare versus this guy. Before you act, each character at your location must succeed a Constitution or Fortitude 6 or discard a card. I cannot do that, so I would end up discarding a card. I'd have to discard the Scale of Resistance. And then we would have played Fiery Glare against him, so that would be a d12 plus 2d4 plus 5, because we still would have had Brilliance out there, and that lasts for the whole turn. So a d12 and 2d4, and we easily beat him. So yeah, we're kind of doing it in the reverse, but the net result is the same. I would have cast 2 spells, aside from Brilliance, would have defeated that, and now succeeded a Wisdom or Perception check with a difficulty of 5 plus the Snare's adventure deck number, so it would be a 6. And we only have a d6 for that, with nothing to be able to help us. Just gonna have to roll a d6 and hope we get either a 5 or no, we need a 6 actually. D6 to get a 6. We got a 2, so we do not. So that means now we actually have to empty the whole location, which is unfortunate. Now we're going to check for recharges here. For Life Drain, for Fiery Glare, we needed an Arcane 10, but we're still going to be adding 3 for the Brilliance. So we will now be rolling a d12 plus 5 to get a 10. And we got a 12, so we definitely are going to recharge that. Same thing for Life Drain on this one. I need a 9, so it's a d12 plus 5. And we did not get that one. We got a 7. And then finally, to recharge Brilliance, we need an 8. So a d12 plus 5 to get an 8. And we did get that one. She will reset her hand. It's unfortunate that we didn't get that location closed, but we did at least clear out the cultist. And a spell would be nice. She didn't get any spells, so I guess she's going to be support for a bit. Sending play over to Imrijka. And she finds a spike pit trap. Wisdom Perception 7, Dexterity Acrobatics 8. The difficulty to defeat is increased by the Snare's adventure deck number. If defeated, you may explore again. If undefeated, each character at this location is dealt 1d4 plus 1 combat damage and then end your turn. So we want to make sure that we do defeat this. Wisdom Perception 7, to be a d8 for her. Or Dexterity Acrobatics 8, which is also a d8. So we will go for the Wisdom check, because it's the slightly better odds, and I think, what do we have? This is non-combat Constitution. When you play any other blessing and it does not have the corrupted trait, banish it and replace it with a random blessing that has the corrupted trait. Okay, so we do have the corrupted trait, and we've got a Blessing of Baphomet up here right now. So let's see what we've got. This was our first exploration, so Blessing of Baphomet would count. Discard this card to add 2 dice to any check attempted during your first exploration. If the top card of the Blessings discard pile has the corrupted trait, discard this card to explore your location, so we're not using that effect from it. And then this would be an Arcane or Divine, and that would cause us to discard a card, so we don't want to do that. So no, we're going to use the Blessing of Baphomet, which is now going to give her 3d8 to get a 7. And we've got that. So we were able to defeat the spiked pit trap, and we may explore again. And Giant Fly, Combat 9. If undefeated, bury a random card from your discard pile. After you act, shuffle this card into a random other open location. So he gets away no matter what happens. We do have the hand crossbow, dexterity ranged 5. For combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d6. We don't have another weapon though, so then that would be a D10 and a D6 plus 2 to get a 9. D10 and D6 plus 2 to get a 9. And we did get that. And now he is going to shuffle into a random other open location. There are 2 open locations, so we're going to roll a D6 to see where he ends up going. And we get the 3, so he is going to go to the Wardstone chamber. And that counts as a defeat, so she can roll a D6 to see if she can explore again, but to get the 2, so she cannot. And then play is going to go to Seelah, who is still here at the same location, so she'll explore. And she finds Worm Demon. Check combat 10. He's immune to electricity and poison. Yes, he is, but he's not immune to the battle aspergillum. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your strength or melee skill plus 1d8. You may additionally discard this card to add another 1d4. If the check is against a Bane that has the Outsider or Undead trait, you may additionally recharge a card that has the Divine trait to add another 1d8. Okay, we will recharge Cure, which has the Divine trait. So now we will be rolling 3d8 plus 3. .3d8 plus 3, which is 16 total to defeat the Worm Demon. Unfortunately, she does not have a way to explore again, so she resets her hand, picks up Blessing of Iomedae, not surprising since we put it there, sends play to Enora. Enora now needs to clear out this whole hall. Well, there's the barrier. Temptation of Arms. Check to defeat none. Draw 3 weapons from the box. If the scenario's adventure deck number is 3 or higher, draw 3 non-basic weapons from the box. That's not the case. You may choose one and add it to your hand. Banish any not chosen. If you added 1 to your hand, the barrier is undefeated. A character at your location is dealt 1d4 plus 1 combat damage. Otherwise, the barrier is defeated. Okay. So, just 3 weapons. See what we get. Crossbow, an Atlas. And the only thing that might be decent here is the Corrosive Dagger plus 1, but it's not worth taking that 1d4 plus 1 damage to me. And I don't think, well, it wouldn't be bad for Imrijka, but we're not going to pick it up. We're just going to get rid of that barrier, and she will use Chuffy Lick Wound to explore again. I am the only character at my location, so add 1d6 plus the scenario's adventure deck number to your combat checks during this exploration. But we did not get a combat check. We instead found Dazzle, which is a d12 plus 4 to acquire, which means we acquire it automatically. That does not give us a way to explore again, though. And she is going to use her Sacred Prism. Bury this card to shuffle 1d4 cards from your discard pile of a character at your location into your hero deck. Okay, so we're going to choose ourselves. And 1d4. We get a 3, so 3 cards back. That's not bad. And she resets her hand. Sends play to Imrijka. Only 3 cards left here. Let's see what we get. Lightning Touch. Intelligence Arcane 4. She has a D4 for intelligence, but heck, we'll give it a shot. And gets a 2. Doesn't have a way to explore again, so we have to pass play to Seelah. And Seelah finds a Man-Eating Oryx, combat 11. If undefeated, each character attempts a Dexterity or Acrobatics 10 check. Characters who succeed are dealt 1 combat damage. Characters who fail are dealt 1d4 combat damage. Well, we'll do our best to kill it then. We can try out the new Flaming Heavy Pick plus 1. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your Strength and Melee skill plus 1d6 plus 1. You may additionally discard this card to add another 1d6 in the Fire trait. And if any d6 on this check is 6, count it as a 7. So that would be rolling a d8 plus 2d6 plus 4. And because we're going to discard it. Not very great rolls there. But plus 4 is a 13, so we do defeat the Mana-Eating Oryx. And she could use the Blessing of Iomedae to explore again. If she does, then she can send it to someone else. She's going to send it to Imrijka and explore again. Last card in here. Oh, and it's the villain. Of course it is. Check to defeat combat 13. Before you act, a character at your location summons and encounters this adventure's Servitor Demon. If the demon is not defeated, increase the difficulty of checks against Jeslyn by 3. After you act, each character at your location recharges a card that has the Corrupted trait or buries the top card of their deck. We're going to let Imrijka take on the Servitor Sloth Demon. Before you act, each character at your location must succeed at a Constitution or Fortitude 6 check or discard a card. Okay, that's its own issue. Let's see if Enora can close the Great Hall first. So succeeded a Wisdom or Perception check with a difficulty of 5 plus the scenario's adventure deck number. She's going to use the Blessing of Abraxas. This is corrupted, so it's not going to trigger anything here. She's going to roll now 2d6 to get a 6 to close that location temporarily. And we got a 6 on the first die, so we do temporarily close that. Of course, that means the villain can escape here, but that's okay. Now to the Sloth Demon. It might actually make more sense for Seelah to take this anyway, because she does have the Battle Aspergillum, and he's an outsider. Imrijka really doesn't have much that's going to help. So, right, I think we will. We'll just leave it to Seelah. Although, before you act, each character at your location must succeed at a Constitution or Fortitude 6 check or discard 1 card. So for Seelah, that's a d8 plus 1. Of course, we got a 2, so she's going to have to discard a card, or it's going to have to be the longsword. And then Imrijka has to only roll a d6. And gets a 1, so she's going to discard a card. It'll be the Silver Raven figurine, I guess. And now he will be combat 9. So she'll be using the Battle Aspergillum, which is going to give us a total of 3d8 plus 3. .3d8 plus 3 is 13 to get a 9. So Seelah defeats the Servitor Demon. And now we have to fight Jeslyn. So her difficulty did not go up, so she's going to be at 13. Okay, the Battle Aspergillum doesn't give us anything special against her. So she is just going to be rolling 2d8 plus 3, but Enora is going to give a blessing. Unfortunately, this is a blessing of Sarenrae, so we're going to lose that. And she's going to have to find a corrupted blessing from the box. And there's a blessing of Shax, so that'll be the one we end up using. Discard this card to add 2 dice to any combat, strength, or dexterity check. Well, it does happen that this is a combat strength check, so now she's going to be rolling 4d8 plus 3. 3, 4, a couple of bad rolls there. But we still get 20, which is going to be enough to defeat Jeslyn. And she has only 1 location to go, so she will go to the Wardstone Chamber. Which is kind of fitting for this particular scenario. Get shuffled in there. This is now closed. For the rest of the scenario, the difficulty of checks to defeat monsters that have the cultist trait by characters at any location is decreased by 2. That's nice. Would have been nice if we'd finished that earlier. Seelah resets her hand, and play will go to Enora. And she finds a sickle, strength melee 5. She has a d6. She gets 3, so she does not acquire the sickle. She is going to explore again using Quadness, and she finds a Codex, Intelligence, Knowledge 8, so that actually he's going to come into play. Discard this card to explore a location. During this exploration, add 1d6 to your non-combat arcane or knowledge checks. And this is knowledge, so that would be a d12 plus a d6 plus 4. And we get 12 total, so we do acquire the Codex, which is not all that useful, and it certainly doesn't let us explore again. So she's going to reset her hand, pass play to Imrijka, who is just going to come over here. Well, let's see, who can close this location? This is a Wisdom or Perception. They're equally good at it. So Imrijka will come over and help Enora finish up this location. Finds Blackwing Librarian, Intelligence Knowledge 6, which she's not going to get, or Diplomacy 8. Actually, she's not going to get either of those. Well, hold on. No, she does have this now Scale of Disguise. Recharge this card to add 1 to your non-combat check or 2 to your non-combat Charisma, Diplomacy, or Stealth check. So let's see, is that going to help? Barely. Well, she can roll a d6 and add 2 to it. She could potentially get an 8 as long as she gets a 6. And I seem to recall we don't really care about this guy that much anyway. Recharge this card to succeed at your check against a boon that has the arcane trait. Discard now. We've already seen him before and we've decided not to keep him. So we're not going to spend any blessings on it, but we will roll that d6. And we do not get it. So he's going to go away. And that is it for her turn. She cannot explore again, so she resets. And we pass play to Seelah, who is going to move to the Wardstone Chamber. And the Grey Garrison is now closed, so that doesn't have any effect on the difficulty of Banes in this location. And we find Cambion. He's a combat 12. He's immune to electricity and poison. Before you act, succeed an Arcane or Divine 9, or you may not play spells that have the attack trait. Well, we don't care about that because we're not going to play any spells. And so he's a combat 12, and he does have the Outsider and Demon traits, so the Battle Aspergillum is not his friend. So we'll be rolling 3d8, and then we're going to recharge this to add 2. So it's going to be 3d8 plus 5 total to get a 12. Okay, plus 5 is 18, so Cambion is defeated. And she could explore again with her Blessing of Abadar, but we would lose that blessing too if we did that. Because we'd have to trade it in for a corrupted blessing. So, oh wait, she's got a Blessing of Ascension. Okay, so we'll use the Blessing of Ascension to explore again and go and find a corrupted trait blessing. Don't mind trading in a Blessing of Ascension for these things. Okay, well, we are still going to get to use this, actually. If the top card of the Blessings discard pile has the corrupted trait, discard this card to explore a location. It does because it's a Blessing of Deskari. So we still get to explore again. And we find Temptation of Big Die. And display this card next to your deck. The barrier is defeated. You may banish this card to roll a 2d20. Add the higher result to your check and bury the number of cards from your hand, discard pile, and deck equal to the lower result. It's almost death. It's, it's... Because... that's way more cards than I actually have. I only have 16 in my deck when it's full, and of course you have a hand size of 4. So no. No. We're not going to explore again, so we'll just draw back up. Send play over to Enora. We're only halfway through the Blessings deck, and we're almost about to close the 4th location. And what do we find? Magic, half plate. Constitution, Fortitude 4. Recharge this card to reduce combat damage dealt to you by 3. Banish this card to reduce all damage dealt to you to 0. If proficient with heavy armors, bury it instead. It seems like it might actually be a good pickup for Seelah. Can Enora acquire it? Just barely. She has a d4. So the question is, does Seelah want to spend a blessing in order for her to acquire that? It looks cool, though. We're going to spend a Blessing of Abraxas. Let's see what happens here. After playing this card, if the top card of the Blessings discard pile has the corrupted trait, discard a card. Discard that, and now she'll be rolling 2d4 to get a 4. And we got a 4 on the first one, so we do acquire this. She's going to have to discard something. We'll discard this because we might try to hand that off. That is the end of her turn. Well, no. Now we get to try if we can close this location. Succeed a Wisdom or Perception check with a difficulty of 5 plus the scenario's adventure deck number, which we know is a 6. Well, let's see, what do we have? The Codex will not help. The Demon Hunter's Handbook will not help. Nothing is going to help, actually, that we have. But the Blessing of Iomade can help. So Imrijka is going to use that and then send it to us. So we'll be rolling 2d6 to get a 6. And we got a 6 on the first one, so we do close this. At the start of your turn, you may recharge 1 card and draw 1 card. Well, because we will be starting our turn that way, won't we? So that's a good thing. She has 6 cards in her hand, so we pass play to Imrijka. It's the start of her turn, so she may recharge a card and draw a card. What will we recharge? She's not in too bad a shape, so we're going to recharge Cure and draw a card, and picks up a Blessing, so it's not bad. She's going to move over with Seelah to the Wardstone Chamber, and she finds the villain. Before you act, a character at your location summons and encounters this adventure's Servitor Demon, and if not defeated, it goes up by 3. So, who's going to have the Servitor Demon? Is it going to be Seelah or Imrijka? I think it's going to be Seelah, since he is an outsider. Before you act, each character at your location must succeed a Constitution or Fortitude 6 check or discard a card. Okay, a d8 plus 1 for Seelah. Gets a 5, so she still has to discard a card, which is going to be the Blessing. And Imrijka only has a 6. D6, but she gets it, so she doesn't have to discard anything. Seelah will be swinging the Battle Aspergillum, which is going to be 3d8 plus 3 to get a 9. And we've definitely got that. So the Servitor Demon is defeated, which means that Jeslyn stays at 13. And now the fight goes to Imrijka, who will use her hand crossbow. And she's also going to use this Blessing of Ascension. Well, she's going to use a blessing and We'll find out what the blessing is going to be in a second here. Oh, these were already ones we went through. So we can just keep pulling off of here. We get a blessing of Shacks, which might be exactly what we need. Discard this card to add 2 dice to any combat strength or dexterity check, which is brilliant. So now we're going to be rolling 3d10 and a d6 plus 2. 3d10 and a d6 plus 2. And that is a total of 29, which is much more than 13. So we defeat Jeslyn, and she has nowhere to go. So that is the end of this scenario. Wow, that went really quickly. Did a lot of extra explorations without having to go through the blessings deck this time. Wardstone Legacy completed. Each character gains a power feat. Okay, I think this is the first power feat we have. So we can increase hand size. We probably will do one of the other ones, though, because those are generally more interesting. Imrijka could pick up Perception Wisdom, or she may recharge or reveal a card that has Divine. Add 1d4 and the Divine and Magic traits you're checking against the monster, which apparently I never remember to do. Okay. Or she can make this down to a 3. And Seelah. Seelah doesn't have much that she can check off here. She can increase her hand size, or you may discard the top card of your deck to add 1d6 plus 1 to any check by a character at your location. It's another thing that I don't use. Over here on Enora, when you attempt to check to acquire a spell or an item, okay, so we can improve that for items, and discard a spell to reduce cold or fire or acid, electricity, and force damage, which is another thing we never really remember to do, but that would basically cover most of the elements. So those are some pretty good things. That's the end of the Wardstone Legacy, but it's also the end of the Worldwound Incursion. Now, each character chooses a Mythic Path card and gains a card feat, which means they'll be able to pick up an additional card slot for one type of card. And I don't have the backs of the cards available really to show you, so we'll have to figure that out for next time. But as far as the Mythic Paths go, it's probably going to be Mythic Champion for Seelah, Mythic Archmage for Enora, and I forget what oh no, this was going to go for Imrijka actually. Mythic Champion would be Imrijka, and then Mythic Marshal would be for Seelah. And we'll explore how that stuff works next time. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Pathfinder adventure card game, Wrath of the Righteous. Come back next time, we'll start on Adventure 2. Please remember to like and subscribe to the videos so that you will find out when I am posting videos in the future. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you next time.